What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Week 10 edition of the Best Effin' Fantasy Show, live from the basement. I'm your host, Steve Albertini, joined by my producer, Nick Specca, my senior analyst, Carmen Dalmastro, and Jerry Procopio.
Powder toss.
Week 10 in the NFL. 4 byes this week: Cleveland, Kansas City, New England, and the New York Jets.
More deaths to talk about this week.
Actually, we're going to kick it off. Instead of doing a Thursday night special, I think it's imperative that we talk about this game for 2 different reasons. We're going to open with Philly at Green Bay, opening with Aaron Rodgers and his broken collarbone. Suffered a small fracture in his collarbone last night on Monday Night Football. Initial reports are that he's out about 3 weeks, but it could be longer. In his place, Seneca Wallace came in and was Seneca Wallace, 11 of 18, 114 yards, no touchdowns. So, guys, first and foremost, from a fantasy fallout perspective, forget about, if you're an Aaron Rodgers owner, you're not going to go and run and pick up Seneca Wallace. But if you're a Jordy Nelson or James Jones, I mean, they're the only guys that are left at this point right now. If you're a Nelson or Jones owner, what are your expectations for them in the games in the upcoming weeks without Aaron Rodgers?
Well, you got to lower your expectations, obviously. Jordy Nelson, you must start him. James Jones, if you have better options than him right now, I would look for them because he got what? He got 2 looks last week, 1 catch for about, I think, 26 yards, and that was it.
Yeah. It was on a tip ball.
Yeah, it was on a tip ball, too. So, it's a big downgrade for all the Packers receivers. The only good receiver that I would see being good right now is Andrew Quarles.
Andrew Quarles.
The tight end.
He was
the most productive.
I know he is. Thanks, Jared. I appreciate the insight. But yeah, those 2 guys, they definitely take a step back. The Packers aren't not a read option type offense, and that's what Seneca Wallace brings. He's a read option type guy. So those guys definitely take a slight bump in the wrong way in value. So just be cautious moving forward with those 2.
Yeah.
Eddie Lacy continued his upward swing the last couple of weeks, 150 yards and a touchdown last night. On the other side of the ball, the Eagles got Nick Foles coming off a historic day, 7 touchdowns last week against the Oakland Raiders. Finished with more touchdowns than incompletions, only had 6 incompletions, over 400 yards, no turnovers. Obviously, goes without saying that we're not going to see anything close to this kind of production, on a regular basis. However, does it change, seeing that historic day, does that change your thoughts on Foles and this Eagles offense in this particular game against the Packers and moving forward if Foles is the guy?
I think this game right now determines who's going to be the quarterback for the Eagles the rest of the year. And I think that Foles is going to do a good job this Sunday. Packers defense isn't that great. You saw what Josh McCown did last week. He had a solid day. Nick Foles is good for about 300 yards, 2 to 3 touchdowns this week.
About Riley Cooper.
Riley Cooper, great chemistry. I like Cooper this week.
Riley Cooper, 3 touchdowns last week. Had 120 yards and a touchdown against Tampa, and actually had his 3 best games of his career with Nick Foles.
With Nick Foles, yep.
In a rematch of an NFC playoff bout from last year, Seattle travels to the Georgia Dome to take on the Falcons. Guys, as good as Seattle's been on both sides of the ball, we've noticed the last couple weeks they've been a little susceptible to the running game. Is this the week, Seattle traveling cross country, been a little sluggish on run defense the last couple weeks, is this the week where Steven Jackson finally has a breakout game?
No.
I don't think so, because he's not. Mike James, they gave Mike James the ball, 20, 25 times last week? Steven Jackson's not going to get the ball that many times because he's not used as an every down back. They use Jaquiz Rodgers and Jason Snelling a lot still, too.
I see Jaquiz Rodgers being the more productive back out of the 2, unless they try and pound the rock like we saw Tampa try and do to Seattle. But in my opinion, Jaquiz Rodgers has a more effective day for Falcons this week.
Steven Jackson doesn't have the kind of burst he used to have.
It's all about burst, Jared.
It's all about it.
Yeah, they've been gashed the last couple weeks to Mike James and Zach Stacy. Be interesting to see if Atlanta goes with a run-heavy approach. Detroit travels to Chicago to take on the Bears at Soldier Field. Josh McCown shined in his start in place of the injured Jay Cutler, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. There are reports, however, that Cutler might try and come back for next week. If you're Mark Trestman and the Bears, do you want Jay Cutler to rush back next week after the way McCown played last night?
I think before Monday night's game, everyone's saying Cutler's he's gonna start next week. He's gonna come back. And after they won, reports are now saying, well, he might not be ready as we thought he would. So I think because they won, I don't think they're gonna rush him back.
I don't see what's the point of rushing him back either. You know, He looked pretty effective, McCown. So why not keep rolling with him? Him and Brandon Marshall, they didn't miss a beat. Alshon Jeffrey, he was productive. Martellus Bennett was productive. Forte was productive. So why not keep rolling him out there until you get a healthy Jay Cutler?
It was definitely a good sign for Jeffrey and Marshall owners last night, who may have been a little scared that their guys may take hits with McCown under center, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Jacksonville travels to Tennessee. Chris Johnson, kudos to you, my friend. 150 yards, 2 touchdowns.
I still hate
It's
him.
about time. Another great game for CJ this week against that Jacksonville run defense.
Absolutely. Jacksonville sucks against the run. CJ keeps going. Plus, I think the fact that they said Sean Green is going to get some more work maybe is motivating him a little more.
He
Who
did
knows?
vulture him once, though.
He did vulture him, but still.
If they get down in the red zone, who had the bulk of the carries?
Sean Green did.
Sean
So
Green.
the vulturing will continue.
Still.
I still like Sean Green. If you're desperate, they should be able to get a lot more red zone touches going against a weak Jaguars defense. Sean Green, like I said, if you're desperate, add Sean Green. Plug him into your lineup.
On the other side of the ball, Justin Blackmon suspended for, indefinitely, at least for the remainder of this season. What's the fallout? Who steps up in Blackman's place?
Well, it's definitely my man Mike Brown. He steps up. He's been productive even with Blackman in the lineup. 2 weeks ago, he had 3 catches for, I believe, 60-some yards and a touchdown against the 49ers in garbage time. But I still think it's Brown moving forward.
Yeah, Jaguars are a team always playing from behind. He's going to get looks. He's going to get garbage time production, and we love garbage time.
St. Louis Rams travel to Indianapolis, take on the Colts. Fresh off their come-from-behind victory in Houston on Sunday Night Football. 2 guys in this matchup that had their best games of the season last week. One for St. Louis, Zach Stacy, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then for the Colts, T.Y. Hilton, 3 second-half touchdowns, 7 catches, 121 yards. Between these two, who do you see is the best bet to repeat that performance this week?
I think it's T.Y. Hilton, even though I love Zach Stacy, but the Colts do give up the second least points to opposing running backs, and I think that St. Louis is going to be playing from behind. Zach Stacy will get it done because he's shown that he can catch the ball through the air, but I think T.Y. Hilton, with Reggie Wayne gone, Andrew Luck's just locked onto him.
He's definitely locked in the second half of last Sunday night. The Raiders travel to New York, take on the Giants off their bye week. Rashard Jennings is in place of Darren McFadden, who tweaked a hamstring last week against the Eagles. Andre Brown is back to hopefully add some balance to that New York Giants offense. Between Jennings and Brown stepping in this week, who do you think has a better game fantasy-wise?
For me, it's Jennings just because he's a healthy body. We don't know what we're going to get out of Brown just yet. We don't know how many touches he's going to get. I do like Brown moving forward, though, but for this week, I like Jennings. He's a better fit in the zone blocking scheme that the Raiders run. One cut back. Jerry knows a lot about one cut backs. He'll tell you about that a little later, but he's a little bit more suited for a zone blocking scheme than Darren McFadden. I like Jennings this week.
That Oakland Raiders defense did give up 7 touchdown passes last week. Who has a better game, Eli Manning off the bye or Terrell Pryor?
Eli Manning, 100% coming off a bye. All 3 of his receivers are healthy now. I think Eli's got a lot of pressure on him after Nick Foles threw 7 touchdowns. I think Eli has to show that he can do something.
Buffalo travels to Pittsburgh this week. C.J. Spiller had his best game of the year last week. 14 touches, 155 total yards. Big Ben, monster game in a blowout loss, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns last week in Foxborough against the Patriots.
And probably one of the worst interceptions in NFL history.
Yeah, true.
That was really good. Jericho Cotchery seemingly coming out of nowhere last week, grabbing 3 touchdowns from Ben Roethlisberger. Is this merely an aberration, or is Jericho Cotchery on the fantasy radar?
Well, I don't think he's on the radar. I think it's just an admiration. Not a guy you're going to trust week to week
No.
with Antonio Brown and Emmanuel Sanders there. So, if you added Jerko Cotchery, good for you. You won't be seeing much more of that. 3 touchdowns week to week, so pump your brakes on Jerko Cotchery.
Yeah, if you're in a deep league, that's the only time that you're going to want to add Jericho Cotchery, Emmanuel Sanders, Antonio Brown, just like you said.
Now go out and score 3 touchdowns this week, Jerko.
Yeah.
Cincinnati travels to Baltimore, AFC North matchup. Giovanni Bernard, little breakout game last Thursday night. 79 yards on 9 carries, 2 touchdowns, and a couple highlight reel runs. Who has more yards this week on the ground, Giovanni Bernard or Ray Rice?
It's a tough one. It depends. Is Cincinnati going to give Bernard the ball?
Been saying that all year.
That's all it is. I think it's Bernard. I think it's Bernard.
Ray Rice and Bernard Pierce
They're about
are
the
the second and third lowest yards per carry in the NFL this year. But in this particular matchup. And Gio also,
The rib injury.
it should be noted, he did leave the game with a rib
Yeah, he
injury.
did.
He did not
Yeah.
return. He was on the sideline in pads without his helmet. But, it's something to keep an eye on. Quan, what do you think, more yards this week, Gio or Rice?
Well, I'm going to go with Gio because I don't even think there's, semblance of a running game or an effort in Baltimore to give Ray Rice or Bernard Pierce the ball. I don't see what they're trying to prove. I don't see why Joe Flacco is throwing the ball 50 times a game. It's mind-boggling to me.
Their leading rusher last week was Joe Flacco. That should never, ever, ever happen. Especially, they had a lot of success last year in the playoffs, but a lot of those guys are not there this year. And offensive coordinator Jim Caldwell really needs to simplify the game plan a little bit and get back to that ground game that was so successful.
Even watching that game, you see Ray Rice wide open in the flat at times, and there's still no even semblance looking at him, nothing, not even trying to get him the ball. It's concerning to Ray Rice owners.
Yeah. Carolina travels to San Francisco to the Stick to take on the 49ers in a battle of a couple stout defenses here.
It should be a fun one.
Before we get to that, Michael Crabtree cleared to practice this week. 49ers announced that. But in a battle of 2 exciting young quarterbacks, who has more fantasy points this week, Cam Newton or Colin Kaepernick?
I said Albert.
That's a tough one. I just think this is going to be a really defensive game. I think it's going to be like 12 to 7. That's what I think.
12-7.
12-7.
You can answer for me, Nick.
12-7.
So you know where my mind's going. I'm more excited to see a lot of injured players for the 49ers return this week. Eric Wright, Mario Manningham, Tank Carradine,
That's true.
just to name a few. Namdi, thanks for coming.
Namdi, I'll see you.
But I'm going to go Kaepernick.
I don't know. Cam Newton to me was never one of my favorite quarterbacks, especially in fantasy. I know they're rolling right now. They ripped off 5 in a row, I think.
Yeah.
They're 5-3 now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Kaepernick on this one too. Sorry, Killer Cam.
Houston travels to the desert, taking on the Cardinals this week. Case Keenum, really nice first half last week. Andre Johnson was the beneficiary of that excellent quarterback play. He was really locked in on Johnson. I felt like every time he stepped back, he was throwing to Johnson. 9 for 229 and 3 touchdowns. And it was week 9, and it was Andre Johnson's first 3 touchdowns of the season. Just to say that.
Yeah, it was.
Arian Foster hurt. Is Ben Tate getting the start this week?
He's hurt too. It's up in the air.
Cracked ribs.
Yeah, his ribs are messed up or something. But if
Well, if Foster or Tate can't go, then who's next in line, Jack?
There you go.
Dennis Johnson, the next guy in line.
Stacey
So-
Mack.
Stacey Mack, Steve Slayton.
Name your obscure Houston Texans running back game.
The next
Dominic
guy.
Davis.
Oh God, my boy.
Ron Dane.
Sam
Sam
Pangano.
Pangano. Yeah.
Ryan Moats.
Ryan Moats. Ryan Moats had a couple of games for them.
He did.
Yeah.
How many other fantasy
Who's
shows
the
can name every Houston Texans running back since
Justin Forsett.
Justin Forsett.
He came in. He got that one lucky touchdown.
that one lucky
Where he
one,
touched
Just
the
that
ground.
one.
Remember that?
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
remember that.
All right, but the guy that steps in is Dennis Johnson. So if Foster and Tate can't go, Dennis Johnson's own blocking scheme. Nice.
Who-
Finally
nice
admits
play.
it.
Who is
Jerk, keep an eye on Deji Kareem.
in a
All right, go ahead.
in a battle of AFC West? rivals. Denver travels to San Diego to take on the Chargers. Look, we're all anticipating this being a high-scoring affair, a lot of points through the air. However, who do you think is going to have more fantasy points at the running back position? No Sean Marino or Danny Woodhead? And just for the sake of competition, we'll say it's a PPR league.
I'm staying out of it.
I'm saying that.
Can't say anything.
In my opinion, I'm gonna go with
Watch yourself.
the Woodhead.
You're damn right.
The Woodhead.
In a PPR league, I'm gonna go with the Woodhead.
He got that touchdown taken back last week.
He did.
He did.
He didn't get in.
He
He got in.
I wish he got in.
The Woodhead got over the plane.
His foot did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
I'm
ball.
going to go Woodhead also. Marino's snaps have been decreasing a little bit.
Monty ball sacks.
Monty Ball is getting involved more. Chargers are going to be playing from behind, I would assume. And who's the running back they use on passing downs? Woodhead.
Excellent point. Dallas travels to the Superdome, taking on the Saints. Sunday Night Football. Again, it should be a great game for fantasy purposes. A lot of big-time players on each side. Who has the better game, though? Des Bryant or Jimmy Graham?
That's a tough one.
Boom. Mixing positions.
That's tough. I'm going to go Jimmy Graham. Surprisingly.
Jimmy Graham.
He's just on a roll. You just can't.
Sure, boy, you picked Des Bryant over Calvin Johnson on many occasions. And now
I
you're going
usually
Jimmy Graham.
would, but Jimmy Graham, you just can't stop him. Even hobbled.
Even
80%.
Excellent.
80%. He'll kill you.
Kill you.
Slash
Say a new
it.
one?
We'll slash
Say a
it.
new one. We got a new one. Yeah, I'm going to just Jimmy Graham for me also. I think finally the Cowboys are finally starting to involve Jason Wynn a little bit more.
That's true.
We hope. Seems like Jason Wynn does this every year. First half of the season, terrible. Then he turns it on towards the end of the season. So I'm going to go with Jimmy Graham. James.
In the Monday night matchup, Miami Dolphins take on the other team from South Florida, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike James broke out last week. We talked about it a little bit earlier, 158 yards, and he actually threw a touchdown pass.
Incredible.
How you like
The
that?
Tebow jump pass.
Yeah.
Who do you think gets more yards on the ground this week? Mike James or Lamar Miller, who cracked 100 yards last week?
Did you see the preview for this Monday night game last night?
Wait, this is a real game?
Yeah. It was like Miami Dolphins currently in a mess right now. Tampa Bay Buccaneers also in a mess right now. We'll have the bigger mess Monday night.
Who made the bigger mess?
It's awful. That's the best they can come up with.
Oh,
It's really not. I wish you could flex Monday night games because it's not a
Nah.
good
Sunday just
matchup.
makes the best out of it.
looks like I'll be watching Raw.
I'm just gonna
Watching
go.
the Sixers.
I'm just gonna go Mike James because Miami gives up the most points to opposing running backs, and if he could rush 150?
158 yards.
158 yards against Seattle, he could duplicate those numbers easily against Miami.
Mike James. Going Mike James also. Lamar Miller. I have a little bit of beef with Lamar Miller just because of the fact that when he was running for that touchdown, there was the whole left side of the field wide open. He decided to put 9 moves on his own guy and a blocker, and then got chased down by Dunlap.
Yeah, but it looked good though. It looked good. I feel like Lamar Miller is so talented, and I don't know, they don't give him the ball. It's there.
Well, he's going to get more carries now. Daniel, like I said, been saying it a million times, Daniel Thomas is not the
He's
answer.
trash.
Just give the
He's
ball
so
to Lamar
bad.
Miller. Just let him
They
run the
put
ball
him in the
20
goal
times.
line. I don't understand why.
His big body. Jay
He's
Bro
not-
could tell you about that.
Jared, is he good looking? No, I'm just kidding.
Andy Dalton.
We'll be right back with our legends and jerk-offs.
We are now.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Week 10 edition of the Best F in Fantasy Show. I'm your host, Steve Albertini, coming at you live from the basement. It is the Legends and Jerk-Off segment. Jared, why don't you kick it off with your legends for Week 10?
Is that a British accent?
I don't know what it was.
All right, my first one, Jordan Reed. He's a legit tight end one. He had a bad game last week. Bounced back this week against Minnesota to give up the third most points to opposing tight ends. He's a stud. My next one, are we going back and forth?
Yeah.
This is like Groundhog Day.
every
All right.
week.
All right, my next one, I mentioned him earlier. Mike James, Miami gives up the most points to opposing running backs. He should have another solid day, over 100 yards, a touchdown or two. And my last one, Pierre Thomas with Darren Sproles might not play. Pierre Thomas is the featured back. I don't give a fuck about Mark Ingram.
No,
Pierre Thomas is the guy.
Personal vendetta. Steve, what I want to know is, if you're doing this show for 3 years, and for 3 years you've been saying, Jer, why don't you kick us off? When am I going to get to go first?
Whenever you
Next
want.
week, you go next week.
You know,
When I ask questions in the first segment and you answer them, then it's up to you.
I don't want to go first.
I know you like to be the closer.
I'm always the closer. The Mariano.
There
Best
we go.
damn fantasy
I know
show.
the basement.
All right, my first one, we're going Trent Richardson versus the Rams. He's been awful as of late. I think this is the week he gets back on track. We seen what CJ2K did to them last week. I think Trent Richardson starts to get a little more touches because T.Y. Hilton's not going to score 3 touchdowns every week. Lean a little bit more on Trent Richardson. Solid play this week for you this week.
T-Bridge.
Next, we're going to go. We talked about him a little earlier. Rashard Jennings at the Giants. Like I said, Giants have been a little vulnerable on the ground. Like I said, Raiders, he's a little bit more suitable in that zone blocking scheme that they run on offense. I like Rashard Jennings this week as RB2. And also Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders versus Buffalo this week. Like I said, they've been throwing it more in Pittsburgh. Jericho Cotry is not going to score 3 times. Brown, Sanders, viable options, especially Sanders in the flex and wide receiver 3 slot this week.
All right. Is Nene's return bad for Gortat's production? All right. Yeah. No, serious question though.
Jared, about that drubbing I put on you last week.
Yeah, I don't think I fixed my
Lost
team.
9-0.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Fucking no.
Who gets shut out?
D Rose 23% from the field all week. That didn't help.
That's why you should draft more whites.
Absolutely right.
Ricky Rubio last night 0 for 7.
It's alright. He's fucking foreign.
Fucking foreigner. Jerkoffs, week 10. Who we got?
Uh,
I don't get to go first, so you go.
okay, my first one, Frank Gore.
With a look.
That's why I did that.
Like
I know.
Like I care.
Carolina stout against the run. Luke Kuechly making moves.
Luke Kuechly.
For you IDPers out there.
Frank Gore, I don't like him this week.
He don't like you either.
Our next one, hate to say it, Zach Stacy. He's been on a roll, but we're playing Indianapolis. Indianapolis, pretty good against the run.
How good?
St. Louis is going to be playing from behind. Zach Stacy, not going to get a lot of chances this week. And my last one, Ray Rice, playing a very stout Cincinnati defense. Not going to do it.
He's
Not
not
gonna
going to
do
do
it.
it. He's not going to do it,
Not
Steve.
gonna do it.
Alright, my first one, we're going Andre Johnson.
Right back at you.
At Arizona, Cardinals giving up the 6 fewest against opposing wide receivers. It was cute what he did last week. But he'll go back to not scoring touchdowns this week. Second one, we're going Steven Jackson. We talked about him earlier. They get Seattle this week. Lacking the burst, like I talked about, Jacquizz Rodgers a little bit more viable this week, catching more passes out of the background. I like Jacquizz in a PPR league. And my last one, Cecil Shorts against Tennessee. Tennessee giving up the fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I like Cecil this week. I mean, I don't like Cecil this week. You could cut that, Jer.
I'll fix it. It's good.
All right, it's time for the award-winning, world-renowned, internationally traveled, panty-dropping segment known as the fuck is that sleeper of the week.
Can I go first? He's got 40 guys left.
Absolutely. As soon as we pay a word to our sponsors, this week's Who the Fuck Sleeper of the Week segment is brought to you by Bonus Wheel Sundays at the Revel. Stop in any Sunday in November to win free slot play. Revel Resorts, the #1 name in entertainment in Atlantic City. Carm,
I have a problem.
what's the problem?
My Who the F guy is condescending with my jerk off.
That's
fine.
all
But
right.
it's okay, because my Who the F
We're
guy
all
is
about
Mike
it.
Brown for the Jaguars. So my previous point about the Titans giving up the fewest points to opposing wideouts is going to condescend with this. But I don't really care because that's what I do. Mike Brown will find the end zone this week against the Tennessee Titans defense with a lot of coverage against Cecil Shorts. I like Mike Brown. I also like Ace Sanders also in that matchup. So, Jer, what else you got for me? Oh, wait. I got Monty Ballsacks also, vulturing No Sean Moreno on the goal line. So we got Ballsacks and Blowshawn. Watch out. Monty
We're
Ballsack.
set. We're set.
Just bleep that whole part.
I got it, don't worry. I'm
You're
looking,
getting serious, Jer.
I'm looking for something here.
You gotta drop the hammer. You want the hammer? Go get the hammer.
Who's Minnesota playing?
Washington.
Washington.
Okay, that's right. All right, my friend.
Oh, we didn't fucking talk about them.
Yeah, we didn't
skipped
talk
over
about
them. Shit.
It's all right.
We don't need-
We'll finish this, and then we'll just do a small segment, and I'll put it in.
You want the
Just
hammer,
do it right
Jer?
now. Just do it right now. Thursday night game this week. Washington travels to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Minnesota let one slip through their fingertips last week in Dallas. Look to rebound at home this week with the Redskins coming into town. Alfred Morris had over 120 yards and a touchdown last week. Adrian Peterson, 140 yards and a touchdown. Who has more rushing yards in this game on Thursday night, Alf or AP?
AP for me.
AP 100%.
Fantastic.
And I want to send a big fuck you to Kevin Rudolph, catching one pass, scores a touchdown, jerking me off in one league.
Kyle Rudolph.
Fuck you, Kyle Rudolph.
And then he got hurt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he broke
Caught
it.
one pass,
Broke his
30
ankle.
yards, touchdown.
Brandon Gibson, Joe.
That's a good
No,
segue right
it's not funny at all, Steve.
Guy.
What did I call him?
Kevin.
Oh, it was Kyle. Kevin, Kyle.
Whatever. Jack.
He gives
Sound like
it you.
Speck
Who
on
the fuck is that sleeper?
Perfect segue. My first one is John Carlson, the guy replacing Kyle Rudolph. You know what? That's why I'm not going to cut it and put it back. I'm just going to leave it right
That's
there.
what we do. We're just off the top of the dome.
Leave it right.
That's it.
Leave it right in. He had 4 catches for 37 yards last week. You know, Christian Ponder. We don't know who's really going to start. I think Christian Ponder, he merits another start. You know how he likes to throw to his tight ends. And my next one, Jeremy Ross, not the teddy bear. Hey, but nobody knows that except us. Never mind. Jeremy Ross, Detroit receiver. There's going to be a lot of points in this game.
You skipped one.
I'm going to get to that.
Oh, okay, my fault, Jer.
I have a system.
Alright. It's like eating pizza. You don't want to eat the... No, I'm sorry.
Sometimes I skip right to the crust.
You're filthy.
Should I leave that in? Especially if it's like the
We need more banter on the show.
the Pizza Hut stuffed crust.
Yeah, you're really filthy.
But we're getting off topic here.
No, we're not. We're
What's
getting
that
on topic.
So Jeremy Ross, high scoring game,
Just get a big dinner
Detroit
box.
receiver. You know, might have some looks to go around. My next one, Greg Salas. He's back with the Jets.
The chef.
It's always a different receiver. This week it was Greg Salas. So who knows? He could continue in the next week getting looks, and there's no like number 1 receiver on the Jets anyway, so he could be the new guy. My next one, we said him last week, Rashard Matthews.
He dropped a touchdown.
He did drop a touchdown, but we're gonna say him again just to keep his name out there because we gave him to you.
We gave him to you.
You're gonna take him.
Yep.
You're going to like it.
My next one, Jarius Wright.
Sleepers for
He's
days.
been very quiet. He's really fast, and
Pick up.
the Washington pass defense is horrendous. So I think he could break a long touchdown this week. And my last one, Griff Whalen. 9 targets last week.
The guy from Boy Meets World?
I thought Austin Collie got signed. He's this big white guy. 9 targets last week. I'm gonna cut that out. 9 targets last
Why?
week.
He is
Why?
white. He knows he's white.
We know he's white.
He can
They
be white.
know he's white.
The people know he can be white.
So 9 targets last week, 3 catches for 27 yards. Who knows? I'm waiting for Levon Brazil, but this guy seems to be stealing the thunder.
Griff. Good old Griff.
It's fantastic stuff, guys.
I'm starting him.
I'm going to pass it along to our producer, Nick Speckett, who is getting bombarded with questions via Twitter. Nick, what's the first question?
First question comes from at Mel Gibson. He wants to know is Rashard Jennings worth a pickup this week?
Yes.
Absolutely. We told
I
him.
know. It's a question. People need to know. Our next question comes from at OnPointNY. He said Jordan Reed, Le'Veon Bell, Anquan Bolden, Andre Ellington, Darren Sproles. You got to start one. It's half a PPR league.
I would go Jordan Reed. He's the best bet to get the most points out of that. Well, actually, Jordan Reed and Le'Veon Bell. It's one of those.
Is Andre Ellington? Is he?
I love Andre Ellington's potential, but they said Bruce Arians just loves Rashard Mendenhall, and
It's a man crush.
After Ellington's game last week, I don't understand.
I don't
how
understand
that's
why
even
he's
possible.
not the guy. I mean, I used to like Mendenhall, but he's dead to me now. So for me, it's Jordan Reed.
All right, Carmen agrees with that with a nod. Next question comes from at GN Zinski, 15. He wants to know, it's a defensive question, so everyone focus.
Saddle up.
Be real defensive.
Denver's D or Carolina's D?
That's tough. You know what? I'm going to go Carolina because I don't see it being a high-scoring game. I think the Chargers, they're going to put points on the board.
I'm going Denver just because of the simple fact if you get points for return yards, Trent Holiday may be able to break one.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's if.
Yeah?
We're one of the few leagues that does that.
No, a lot of leagues do that.
I'm talking, what is it, 85% of leagues don't do that, right, Peter? Right.
No, that's not true.
No.
A lot of things are defense special teams.
Okay, all right.
And then, was it San Diego that had 2 kicks blocked last week, or was that Washington that had 2 kicks? It was Washington.
It's Washington.
Corey Leach
Texans
blocked
had
Yeah.
one too.
That's right. Never mind. But yeah, I agree with Denver for the same exact reason. Trendon Holiday could break one at any moment.
It's so hard with defense, especially when they get blown out and they give you negative 2 points. That's a
Like,
Denver's going to give up more points.
yeah. That's a problem with Denver. Our next question comes from @Suave_Thunder. That's a
I like that.
I know. He said, "Sup guys, I'm Suave." No, he didn't say that part. But he said, if you had to choose, would it be was it #Mr. Beast Mode and Reggie Bush? Would you trade them for Megatron? A lot of hashtags in there.
Both of them?
with both of them?
Yeah. #Mr. Beast Mode and Reggie Bush
Trade both.
No,
for #Megatron.
I wouldn't trade.
That's kind of suave.
2 running backs that have been 2 of the most productive running backs in the league this year.
Even though Calvin Johnson is just on his own planet,
You're giving too much.
running backs are the backbone of a team.
Yeah.
Who are his running backs going to be after that?
Probably just Megatron. Just gonna put him in
He's
there.
going to play.
I think you got another question.
No.
There's another question there.
Wait, just now?
There is another question there. You should probably read it.
I'm not asking.
What do you mean?
Our next question comes from is it Lloyd? Should I say Lloyd or no? Okay. Our next question comes from @Ricky Davis. He wants to know, would you start Griff from Boy Meets World or Rashard Mathis? #Lloyd was here.
I miss Lloyd.
When it's Boy Meets
Tough one.
World.
That's a tough one.
Well, it's tough because Girl Meets World comes out in January 2014, and like Corey's, it's gonna be like Mr. Feeney. But again, I'm sorry.
I'm
How
gonna
about
go.
Griff played by Adam Scott?
That's
Who's having a really
Eric
nice career.
yeah.
Is not in it.
Not yet.
Really?
Anyone
Yeah.
from the
I
old
thought he was
show
signed
is
on.
opened up to come in at any point.
How
I
open?
thought him and Sean signed on.
Yeah, I think Sean's definitely gonna be in it.
It looks like Griff.
I hope they redo the Halloween scene again.
Griff was too chill.
With
He was
Jennifer
sure.
Love Hewitt.
Oh yeah, but everyone's
That
dying.
episode?
Well, yeah, but everyone dies in it.
Oh,
Pencil
yeah.
to the head.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
JLH. And her
So I'm gonna go with Griff.
Griff.
I'm gonna go Griff too.
unanimous on Griff.
Griff
He was
it
too
is.
chill.
Miss you, Lloyd.
That's
He held down John Adams high like with an iron fist.
yeah, you're scary. I would have gave my lunch money. That's all the questions we have right now, and I'm out of lunch money. I want to give it back to Steve.
All right, thanks, Nick. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you have any questions or comments, hit us up on Twitter @BestFNShow. Make sure you check out the website, bestfnfantasyshow.com, for all the rankings, the podcast, and some other cool stuff we'll post throughout the week. Good luck in Week 10. We'll see you next week.